You're best in the world, you know that. So I appreciate you for what you do.
Well, I told you today, and I mean it, and I tell actually everybody about this. I'm like, Trent has no ceiling. Like, whatever you want to do, you can do because, one, you've already proved it.
Yeah.
Like, come out of nowhere. And for people who don't know, like, your story, we'll talk about that, but for you to transition from one thing, playing football, to now literally inspiring like hundreds of millions of people on the internet, that's like not easy to do. So if you'd pulled that off, whatever you have in your future, that's yours.
No, I appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. What was it that made you say, okay, I want to get on the road, I want to speak, I want to inspire people? Because a lot of people, when one part of their life changes or ends, they quit.
Yeah. You know, it was the moment of me being on stage, a stage that I didn't want to go on. Like, I wasn't the guy who, my dream wasn't to be a speaker. It wasn't like we talked about that with my peers, like who's going to be the speaker. My dad was a pastor, so it's kind of my family, but sports was my thing. Not to get too in depth in my story, I got an opportunity to speak at a church, and it was 4,000 to 5,000 kids.
Big church.
And I was scared, man. I was trying everything to get out of it.
Yeah. How old were you?
That had to be I was 27, 26.
That's a lot of people.
And it's kids. So like, that's hard, because I mean, kids, they have no filter. And to make a long story short, on that stage, even though how fearful I was before I walked on there, when I got on there, it was just something I couldn't explain. I know you feel that too. It's like when you walk, it's just something I couldn't explain. I was like, man, like this is what I was created to do. And how the kids responded. They were looking like, wasn't moving at all. And so literally after that speaking engagement, I was still trying to pursue football because I was hanging on to it because I didn't know what to do with my life. I said, you know what, I'm through playing football and this is what I'm going to dedicate my life to. And that was when I started RehabTime. That was before the videos, that was before, people follow me online, any of that. And I just knew in my heart the feeling it gave me just to inspire people and impact people's life. I was like, this is what I was created to do.
What was your message to the kids?
My message was, I started off with a football message just because I knew that would grab them. But my message was there's something more to your life. And I used sports. I was like, for me, it was funny because I don't even know if I believed it at that time, but I was telling there's something more to your life, whether it's, sports, whether it's whatever. You're gonna go through a moment where you're gonna lose something. Dreams are unfaithful. You're gonna lose that dream maybe, but there's something more. And I was in church and I was preaching my faith. I was like, God has a plan for you that maybe you don't understand. And those kids were just locked in. And like, what's funny about it is because in me talking it, I made myself believe it in that moment.
Doing it.
Doing it. In that moment, And I remember calling my mom and my dad, and they're super supportive, but they were like, they were worried out of protection. They're like, oh, how you gonna pay your bills? Like, what's going on? And I was just like, it's just rehab time. And she was like, okay, and I support you, She didn't want to, of course, be like the Debbie Downer to me. And literally, like, I promise you, Brendan, like 3 weeks later to a month, I started making these videos, and these videos started to catch momentum, and it just started to grow from there.
Yeah, like 1 billion video views or something.
A billion, yeah, it's over 1 billion. I mean, even this year, we're in April, right? I lose track of time. We're in April, and we have just on Facebook alone, over 200 million already this year.
It's remarkable. What is it you think about those videos or your style or your message that would do that? Because a lot of people put out just as many videos.
Yeah.
Why do you think you've penetrated that broad type of message that so many people would consume?
I think I really understand what people are feeling. Call it empathy, but I really understand. And so Dr. Tony Evans, which that's actually the church I was at, and he's been a mentor of mine from a distance. His son Jonathan has been one of my best friends that really pushed me into doing this. He brought me to that church. And I remember Jonathan telling me something about him that always sat with me. He says before he does a message, he pictures a whole bunch of people, like a woman, a man that's single or married or got fired or struggling. He pictures them around the table and what they would need. And so before I go into any message, I had that visualization of that person or that message. So if I'm talking about, there's more to your life, I'm thinking about that person who's in their room and thinking that there's nothing else. And so I think people can really feel that connection. And I think that's what shines through.
You're speaking to one.
Exactly.
And to a specific person.
That's always been, if you go back to 2011, I said that I'm not trying to change the world, I'm trying to change one life. And even when I'm speaking on stage, I picture that I'm talking to one person out there. And I think that's what resonates with people.
People feel that. I tell everyone, you're like the best speaker on the planet right now. You gotta watch Trent. People feel it. It's visceral when you're talking to them. What was it about, maybe the first couple months or years you were like, oh, I'm gonna do this full time. I get it. You felt it, you saw the reaction, but was there something that happened? You said, this is a thing?
A lot of things happen, of course. When you see people, I would start here. So seeing people put me in the category with people that I look up to. Like I would see stuff like, oh, my mentors are Trent Shelton and Oprah. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on, And I started to see like, wow, it's really affecting people's lives, putting me in categories as yourself. And I'm like, wow, this is like a real thing and people are really being impacted. And it, but it's just different. And then when I started to go out to places, I would have people come up to me and cry. And I'm like this is really big. And I would say the main thing, man, I got a speaking engagement in Sweden. It's my, out of all places, it's Sweden, my very first speaking engagement outside the country.
First
right?
paid
paid one, yes, in Sweden. And it was that moment when I realized this is real life. I'm in Sweden right now speaking to people. And a lot of these people know my message. And so I was like, there's no ceiling. And it made me realize how small the world is too, and how the power of social media and where it can take you.
For real. When you are making this transition, which you're making right now from, speaker and teacher online, but you're also you're writing a book.
Yeah.
And this interview, I was so excited for days. I was like, oh, maybe we can actually pull something off when we're in Fort Worth, because making that leap to author is really hard.
Yeah.
And it takes knowing your work. What made you say, okay, this is the time for me to write a book right now? How did you know?
Everybody was asking for it. Everybody was asking for it in my community, and I'm always thinking about how can I serve them. And I like the process of writing. I like the process of creating. And it was another challenge for me, but I also knew, having conversations like people like you or authors that I knew, that there was something different about a book. And when I started to think about my life, right? Yes, videos have impacted me, but there's books that have impacted my life. Purpose-Driven Life is one of them that changed my life forever. And I was like, I want to have that book for that person out there.
So good. So book's The Greatest You.
Yeah, The Greatest You.
Why does someone need to read that book?
Because everybody has a version of themselves that's greater, right? And, a lot of people, wherever you're at, you might say, Trent, I am the greatest me. Well, I'm sorry, if you're still breathing, there's another level to your life that you can tap into.
Place to grow.
And then also, there's a group of people out there that feel like there's no other level to their life because of everything they're at and where they're stuck at. And I feel and I resonate with that so much. And so this book is literally going to help people turn their pain into their power. Through my story, it's not all about my story, but also stories of rehabbers. And I'm giving tactics on how you can actually go from that perceived lesser version of yourself to that greatest you.